Hi folks, Dr. Rob Barrington here with some more nutrition advice. This video is going to be a video that explores some of the beneficial effects of glycine and L-theanine on mood and particularly perhaps on sleep. It might be a bit of a rambling discourse because there's a lot of overlap between certain subjects here, and I wanted to give an overview of something that I find quite interesting, and I think something that's been overlooked in the nutritional literature as an aspect that can help people. So let's talk first about glycine and why glycine can be used as a very effective sleep agent. It can be used to induce sleep quite effectively. There is reasonably strong evidence in the literature, but I don't think this is something that's really been well communicated to people. I don't think when people say, what substance would you take to help you sleep, I don't think glycine would be one of the substances that many people would recall. So first of all, what is glycine? Glycine is an amino acid. It's one of the amino acids that's incorporated into protein, so it's a proteinaceous amino acid in humans. It's part of our diet. It's found in all protein foods. It's not an essential amino acid, so our bodies can make glycine, but that doesn't mean that dietary glycine isn't important. And glycine has many functions in humans and animals, but in humans it's used particularly, it's one of the amino acids that's used to create creatine, which is obviously an important high energy substrate found in cells. It's also an amino acid that's used to increase glutathione in cells. So glutathione requires glycine to be made. And actually consuming high levels of reasonably high levels of glycine as a free-form amino acid in the diet, so powdered glycine can increase. It's a very effective way of increasing cellular glutathione levels. And interestingly, the supply of glycine to cells is the limiting rate, the rate limiting step in the synthesis of glutathione in cells. So it has a number of very important roles in nutrition anyway. But I wanted to talk particularly about why glycine can be taken in its free form crystalline state, as a powder, either as a tablet or as a as a capsule, or as actually as a powder. Why that can be beneficial in causing sleep. And really, this is the central theme of this video: is the glutamate receptor, the NMDA receptor, which is one of the glutamate receptors in the brain. Now, this is we're going to talk about this receptor as well when we talk about theanine, but this receptor is its natural agonist is glutamate, and glutamate is another amino acid, and glutamate is able to activate the NMDA receptor in the brain, and when it does, it opens ion channels, and this receptor becomes a very excitatory focus in the brain. It increases the excitatory aspects of the areas of the brain where it is concentrated. Overstimulation of the NMDA receptor can cause, is been thought to cause things like seizures, various detrimental effects in the brain, particularly things like overstimulation, excitation, and there is some evidence that maybe it's this receptor that's pivotal in the formation of some of the attention hyperactivity deficit disorders, and this relates to nutrition, because there are a number of nutritional compounds that can actually affect this receptor. There are a lot of artificial chemicals in foods. Monosodium glutamate will affect this receptor as well. So it's not that activation of the receptor is bad, because obviously it's there for a reason. There is a reason why there are excitatory amino acids and neurotransmitters in the brain, and therefore it's not that it's bad, but overstimulation of this receptor could be seen to have detrimental effects. Now, interestingly, glycine is actually classed as an agonist of this receptor, which means that it activates the receptor, but it only activates the receptor in a very weak way. It doesn't fully activate the receptor. So if you think about a way of simplifying this would be to say that the receptor is activated to a certain percentage, but never to 100% when glycine is interacting with it. Now, that would make you think that the glycine would have a stimulatory effect in the brain because it's activating an excitatory receptor in the brain, which would activate excitatory neurotransmitter pathways. But because it activates the receptor for only weakly, it actually preventing the agonist glutamate activating the receptor itself. So in effect, it's getting in the way of glutamate activating the receptor at 100% by activating it at 10-20%. I made that figure up. It's an arbitrary figure, but it's activating at a much lower level. And this is possibly the way that glycine can induce sleep in humans and animals as well. There's been animal studies that have shown that that glycine can induce sleep, and that's very interesting because that's not one of the main pathways that anybody, like I say, if you ask even nutritionists what are some of the substances that you could take to induce sleep, glycine is not one of the things that's ever really on the top of the list. Yet it's very effective at doing this. So is glycine an effective sleep aid? The literature says yes. In animals and humans it's been tested. Is glycine safe? Yes, it's been shown to have a very high level of safety. Grams of glycine every day don't appear to have any detrimental effects. Does it have some very important effects in the body if you take supplemental glycine? Yes. You can certainly increase creatine synthesis rates, and you can certainly increase glutathione synthesis rate. So it has a very important pro-antioxidant effect. In other words, it's the precursor for creating a very important cellular antioxidant, and it also has a very pro-energy production effect because it's the precursor for creating an important high energy compound in cells. It has other roles. It's incorporated into collagen. Glycine obviously is a proteinaceous amino acid, so it's actually incorporated into our skeletal muscle. But then on top of that, it also appears to have this this kind of effect on the brain in terms of calming the brain down and inducing sleep. Now, one of the important things that they found when they've investigated people who've taken glycine and animals that have taken glycine in order to and then researchers have monitored their sleep, they found that not only does glycine decrease the length of time that it takes for somebody to fall asleep, it also improves the quality of the sleep. Again, this is thought to relate to the activation of the NMDA receptors, the glutamate receptors in the brain. But one of the kind of side effects that they found of taking glycine is that it lowers body temperature when you're asleep. And this is one of the important factors that is required to maintain a deep level of sleep. And glycine appears to be able to lower individuals' body temperatures when they take it prior to sleeping. So that's some of the interesting things about glycine and why it could be, if you're, maybe you're an insomniac or you're finding it difficult to sleep, one of the things you could look at is taking supplemental glycine. So you could do some research onto that if that's something that interests you. Another substance that is of interest in relation to this type of this theme of discussion is L-theanine. Now, L-theanine is also it's a pseudo amino acid. It's classed as an amino acid. It's found in tea leaves in high concentrations. It's not really found in other foods. It's primarily found in tea, and that's about it. Very low levels are found in other things, but it's synthesized mainly in tea. You can obviously take supplements of it, and theanine has become well known for its ability to increase concentration. It increases the what we call the alpha wave state of the brain, and it's able to. The alpha wave state of the brain is the state where you're in a high level of focus and concentration on a particular subject, and you're drawn into it, and you are able to concentrate for long periods of time. And L-theanine again is able to interact with the NMDA receptor. So this is very likely one of the mechanisms whereby L-theanine is able to create this alpha wave state. What effectively L-theanine may be doing is, we know that it's absorbed, we know that it gets across the blood-brain barrier, and we know that it gets into the brain. And this is true for tea drinkers as well. Drinking tea has been shown to increase the L-theanine content of the blood and the brain. And what's likely happening in the brain is that L-theanine is interacting with these excitatory NMDA receptors, these aspartate receptors, and they are again blocking the ability of glutamate to cause excitation in the brain. In doing that, it's bringing the brain down to a more focused level. And it's very interesting that one of the compounds that is often talked about with people who have hyperactive disorder, or attention hyperactivity disorder, one of the compounds that is often talked about in terms of helping those people, in terms of making one of their kind of symptoms of their disorder is their inability to focus and concentrate. They find that their brain moves around to various different subjects. They're unable to stick to a particular subject for long. Hence the kind of the overall kind of symptom of not being able to have attention on a particular subject. L-theanine is one of the compounds that is often used by self-medicated, usually by those types of individuals, in order to be able to increase focus and concentration. And that would make me think that glycine may have a similar effect. I wouldn't know about that, but that's theoretically, this interaction with this receptor is obviously the target of medication for that particular disorder. And interestingly, amphetamine and amphetamine derivatives are often used to treat attention hyperactivity disorder, and amphetamine actually downregulates the NMDA receptor. It actually takes the expression of it in the cells, and it actually downregulates the expression of it, and therefore there are less receptors. So it works in a slightly different way, and it's on a slightly longer term scale, but it's working in effectively the same manner. It's decreasing the ability of glutamate, an excitatory amino acid in the brain, to activate its excitatory receptor, the NMDA receptor, and therefore it's decreasing the excitability of the brain. So that's two compounds that interact with the NMDA receptor. And there are others. This video, could be much longer. There are other compounds, like zinc is an antagonist as well. So zinc may well have an effect on concentration and focus. These types of studies are actually quite difficult to do outside of animals. But there is reasonably strong evidence that certainly glycine and L-theanine will have this calming effect. Glycine in terms of being able to cause and induce sleep, and theanine working slightly differently in terms of being able to kind of increase the focus and the attention of the person on a particular subject. And there are many people who take L-theanine before bedtime in order to be able to have a more efficient sleep. So clearly with some people that is having a crossover effect with how glycine works as well. So there's two supplements in relation to the excitatory receptor, the NMDA receptor in the brain, that could be worthy of consideration if you've not considered them. They are reasonably safe. Like I say, you can drink tea. Tea is known to have this calming effect on the body, even though it's got caffeine in it, which is a substance that you would expect to cause excitation. Certainly tea can wake you up a certain amount, but it definitely has this calming effect, and that's something you see that's different with coffee. Coffee just has the methylxanthines, the caffeine in it, and that is definitely a kind of a stimulant. It will stimulate you and wake you up very very clearly. Tea does have a stimulant effect, and that's clearly because it does have the methylxanthines in as well. There's a certain amount of caffeine, and there's a certain amount of theophylline in there as well. But it also has this high level of L-theanine, which has a calming effect, and I think that's why tea is more of a balancing drink compared with coffee, which is much more of a stimulatory drink. Can you get glycine in your diet? You can, Like I say, glycine is in all protein. All animals incorporate protein into their skeletal muscle and their tissues. So when you eat animal foods, you are eating glycine. Glycine is also in plants. So when you eat plant foods, you're eating glycine in the proteins of plants. So there's plenty of glycine in the diet. The question is, can you use that dietary glycine to be able to synthesize glutathione, synthesize creatine, to have an effect in the brain on the NMDA receptor? Yeah, there will be some effect, but it's not the same as taking the supplement in high amounts. You can really increase the blood levels of glycine by an order of magnitude by taking supplements, something that you can't get from food and from the diet. Can you get enough L-theanine to have a calming effect from the diet? Yes, by drinking tea. So while you can get L-theanine in high enough amounts to have a physiological effect on the NMDA receptor from the diet, you can't really with glycine. You'd have to take a supplement. The levels in the blood and the brain have to be elevated above what they would normally be from normal consumption of food. So I hope you found that interesting. 2 supplements to consider for sleep and concentration: glycine and L-theanine. As always, eat well, stay healthy and protect yourself, and I will see you soon for another video. Take care.